Hey guys, it's Sasha here from The Balanced Canine, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm going to talk to you about an interesting letter that I got in the post yesterday. So I received this envelope yesterday with no return sender information on it at all, but that post stamp says it comes from the Dandenong Mail Centre in Victoria. So that was the best I could trace it back at this point. So when I opened this envelope, I got this letter, and as you can see in the red font, it's making it look quite important. So the first thing when I started reading, I'm like, okay, this is from a consumer, but the weird thing is that there's no contact details. There's no contact details on this letter. And over the years, I've had many real consumers contact me about very real issues that they've had with their pet food. Now, they want to have their voices heard. They want me to talk to them. They don't care about having their name out there. And even if they don't want their name up there publicly, they'll still talk to me about it. That it's not an issue, and it never ever has been. So it got my alarm bells ringing when I received this with no return address on it and no contact details. So I was unable to make contact with the writer of this letter to ask some more questions, to see how legitimate that they were. So number one, alarm bells. Let me read you the letter, and I want you, as I read this letter, I'd like you to think of you as the pet owner using the language that's within this letter, and see if some of those terms would be ones that you would use as well. So to start with, must read, please read. The pet food industry needs to change. You as a store owner can help. So this letter has been sent to a lot of pet stores. I have a lot of contacts all over the place, and a lot of the pet stores contacted me and let me know that they have received this letter. Dear store owner and consumer, number one, we don't use the word consumer if we're just a pet owner. It's kind of a weird term to use, although I guess some people could, but it's just kind of weird. My name is Josh. I am sending you this letter to make you aware of a brand called LifeWise that is not being honest to its customers or stores that buy and sell their products. Now you might be thinking, who is LifeWise? Well, I only started hearing about LifeWise a little bit last year when a dog owner actually contacted me, and they saw LifeWise and they sent me a photo of the packaging and asked me what my thoughts were. So I actually went and investigated them a little bit back then, but I haven't added them to my databases because I really didn't actually see them as a big player in the market. And that sounds bad, I just didn't really think that they were that interesting at the time. So I just didn't really look into them too much. So you may not have heard of LifeWise, but what I can tell you from LifeWise, it's pretty public knowledge for those in the pet food industry, is that some of the people that are involved in LifeWise actually used to work for another company, another pet food company. I don't know if they have connections to other pet food companies as well, so I don't know anything else like that. That's all I know. Alright, since purchasing LifeWise and feeding our dog this food, and only this food with no other food, our boy is on a strict diet. He had become very ill, vomiting, lethargic, scratchy, and not himself. We took him to the vet, and this only happened to him once before. He's a 4-year-old German Shepherd and has only reacted to food like this from the supermarket when he was 10 months and found out that he couldn't eat food containing wheat or soy. I'm not exactly sure what sort of test they would have done to ascertain he can't eat wheat or soy, unless a full-on elimination diet was done and those ingredients were actually brought into the elimination diet and were tested, because any blood allergen testing for these are actually considered novelty. Like, the dermatologists don't believe them, so I'm not sure what test they did. We hadn't had this issue in the past when he was fed Taste of the Wild Ivory Coast or Canada, and due to wanting to feed an Australian product, we chose LifeWise as their ingredients tick all the boxes for us. The bags we purchased are the grain-free chicken and the grain-free tuna. That was the next thing that kind of sent my alarm bells kind of ringing, and I was like, why did they buy 2 bags of food at the same time for the one dog? That's kind of unusual. I think most pet owners would agree that they don't generally buy 2 bags at the same time and feed them simultaneously. It's just not typical behaviour. But anyway, we move on. So why are we sending this letter? We wouldn't have purchased this brand if they had been truthful in stating that the ingredients list and literature that they used wheat and soy. The company can use whatever ingredients they like. They just need to be honest and state it on the packaging. So for me, the consumer can make an informed decision. Then in big red writing it says, the concerning part is that packaging states that it is free of GMOs, gluten, dairy, cereal grains and soy. Please note that accompanied with this letter is a copy of the ingredient list from the 2 bags we purchased, as well as the 2 reports from a respected government testing laboratory, NADA. So let me stop there for a second. If you send something off to NADA to get tested, that is not cheap. Thousands of dollars. I've actually sent an email off to NADA to actually ask them how much these tests would have cost, because it's thousands of dollars. Like, it could be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's not cheap. It's not just something you just do. So I find that really, really interesting. So I go back. NADA, showing that there is gluten and soy detected in the food. The tests were conducted as an allergen test due to the reaction our boy had to the food. Gluten is a composite protein made up of gliadin and gluten and proteins. Gluten is found in wheat, rye and barley. This means that while all foods that contain wheat also contain gluten, not all gluten comes from wheat. Wheat has much higher content of gluten than rye and barley. Yes, but you kind of dug yourself in a hole there at the same time. We purchased 2 grain-free products that were meant to be grain-free with no grain in ingredients, but the test results speak for themselves and they tell a completely different story. Or do they? Please see attached. So in the attachments that we got, so we got a photo of the packaging, the 2 bags, and then we got the test results from NADA. Now what I found really, really interesting, again when I go back to typically in all my experience dealing with consumers, that they don't black out their details. Okay, maybe black out your address. It's still kind of weird if you've sent me a letter. You don't black out your last name. Why would someone do that? So Josh and Samantha, apparently. So we have these test results, and they've done some circling there. You can see there it says gluten, soy protein and lupins. So these are things that have been found in this kibble. Anyway, we'll continue. The test results also detect soy. There is no mention that soy is in the ingredient list. The other interesting point we noticed is that they do state lupins in their ingredient list, but the report finds very little lupins detected. There is more gluten and soy in this food than lupins. No, there's not. That's not what the report actually states. That's actually a misinterpretation of the test results. Please share this with your customers so they don't make the same mistake we did. The pet food industry needs to clean up its act. As a consumer spending a lot of money on good food for my boy, I want to be heard. Thank you, Josh. Well, Josh started out, I mean, he sounds passionate, and as you would expect a consumer to sound passionate. But then when I was doing some research this afternoon, because I just don't come and tell you stuff. Like if I just presented this with no research and people started not to buy LifeWise, then that would be a real issue. That would be really, really irresponsible. So during my research today, I ended up on the Petfood Reviews site, and Josh was there, and he was being quite aggressive there. He was saying a few things. Anyway, so as part of my research was to actually contact LifeWise. Now, I haven't spoken to these guys before. As a lot of you guys know, last year or early this year, I can't remember, I actually contacted a lot of the kibble manufacturers to ask them, from the protein percent, how much is actually meat? LifeWise was not one of those ones I contacted because I didn't really think LifeWise was that much of a brand at the time. So I haven't had any dealings with them before. So I didn't know what was actually going to happen when I contacted LifeWise and said, can I have a statement about this letter? I need your take on what this is, because I have my own feelings about this, and it doesn't sit right with me, and I want you to give me your professional answer on what this is. So here is a response from LifeWise. Now remember, the letter is sent from a guy called Josh, and on the NADA test it's Josh and Samantha. On Petfood Reviews it is Josh with our last name, which may or may not be true. There's no other records of this person, so I can't state if that's a true identity or not. Good morning. Whilst we applaud Josh for attempting to shine light on the problem of false reporting and misleading information peddled by some marketing companies excuse me, within the pet industry, and assuming the samples submitted for testing were actually our food, it's a shame he has chosen to denigrate our product through his ignorance of associated science. Now, this is what I was talking about. What this letter says about what these test results say isn't what the test results actually say, alright? They go on to say, let me explain. Gluten in nutritional circles, the term gluten is universally accepted to describe protein derived from wheat gliadin, barley, hordein, and rye sequelin. These particular proteins are the ones celiac sufferers must avoid, whereas the gluten content of oats, corn, millet, sorghum, and rice are generally accepted as being safe. In canine nutrition, a very small percentage of dogs have been observed to have an adverse reaction to gliadin and a lesser reaction to hordein and sequelin, but no observed adverse reactions to the glutens from other cereals mentioned. The laboratory test for gluten is an assay for the presence of prolamins, a protein component of all gluten. Unfortunately for Josh, pulses such as beans, peas, lentils, plus other vegetable protein sources all contain pulses of prolamins, just not in the same form or quantity as wheat, barley, or rye. So let me repeat that. The assay is actually looking for the presence of a thing called prolamins, which is a protein component of all gluten. Okay, so pulses such as beans, peas, lentils, and other vegetable protein sources also contain these traces. You got that? Cool. As neither of the tested foods contain wheat, barley, or rye, but do contain pulses, we would expect a prolamin assay to report traces as depicted in the reports. Soy. All levels of soy detected in the samples are shown to be in the range of 0.0023% to 0.0035%. To give you an idea, that's around about a spoonful out of a ton. As soy is commonly used in many animal foods, and as full fat soy, a common form used, is a particularly sticky form of the ingredient, it is not at all surprising that trace levels of this material be found in food that has been processed through machinery that is also used for processing foods containing soy. This is the reason why some human food products contain warnings that traces of certain ingredients may exist. Soy as an ingredient is not included in LifeWise foods. Number 3, lupins. So keep in mind that lupins is an ingredient in LifeWise. Josh said, because he misunderstood the test results, that there was more gluten and soy in the product than lupins. Let's get LifeWise take on that. Lupins. Sweet lupins are indeed an ingredient in both diets, and the tests do show a presence of more than 5 parts per million, although the actual level is not stated. Remember, this test was for allergens. That's what it was, okay? So that test result has actually been misinterpreted. All in all, it is most distressing that you should have been targeted through Josh's attempts to sabotage the LifeWise brand. Obviously, the outstanding market acceptance of these superior performing formulations have ruffled a feather or two. And they go on to say, if I need to know more or talk to them more, that I can go ahead and contact them. Now, I have to agree, I went into this before even contacting LifeWise going, alarm bells are ringing here. This doesn't sound right. This is weird. The way that this letter was written, the way that it came, yeah, and how the test results have actually been misinterpreted. I would feel very, very sad if a dog had got sick. I mean, dogs get sick all the time on processed foods. You know, I'm a fresh food feeder. It's what I like, but what I do not like is dirty tactics within the pet food industry. We deal with enough of them, you know, to trick consumers into believing there's different things in food than there actually is. But this little company, LifeWise, a little Australian company, has obviously ruffled a feather or two, God knows why, and they're being targeted. So I would ask you, if you received this letter today asking you to spread the word to pet owners, pretty much to ask them not to buy LifeWise, I would not be doing that, because this and these test results do not line up. These test results are true. We don't know if they came from LifeWise, because that's impossible to know, but these test results are true, that these aren't fake, but the interpretation of them is not actually correct. So if you're feeding LifeWise, I don't think that this is a red flag for you. I don't believe that you need to stop feeding LifeWise. I think if you have any concerns, you should definitely contact LifeWise and you should have a chat to them. I think if you're looking for a new food and you wanted to support an Australian underdog who's seemingly being targeted unfairly, maybe give LifeWise a little bit of a go, because these guys seem to be being hammered a little bit, and that doesn't seem very fair. If you feed LifeWise, you like LifeWise, you've had issues with LifeWise, feel free to post below. I mean, not all dogs are going to do well on all kibbles. We know that. It's a very individualized thing. But from what I can see of the ingredients, it doesn't seem to be an issue. And, you know, the research I did also goes hand in hand with the statement from LifeWise to suggest that these are trace. These are not in high enough amounts to actually cause issues to these dogs. And I've been through with you the red flags that I have when I was reading through this. So, hey, I'm very clearly making assumptions. That's what I'm doing. I'm guessing, I'm making assumptions, I'm going with my gut feeling. This doesn't feel right. Okay, so make up your own mind. As I said, if you want to support an underdog who's getting a bit of a hard time and you're looking for a new kibble company, look up LifeWise. I actually have no idea where it stopped. No idea at all. I don't go into pet shops a lot, so I presume you go to LifeWise. I don't even have a website for them. Type in Google LifeWise dog food, and I'm sure you'll come across their website and you can find out where to buy it. So if you got this letter, that's what I'd be doing with it. Okay? be an educated consumer, be a well-researched consumer, and know that there is some pretty crappy stuff that happens in the industry.